All right, everyone. Welcome to the Self-Doubt Solution. This is your host, Mario Lanzarotti, the Freedom Architect. Today, I have the plum-pleasing pleasure of welcoming my dear friend, Ewane Masango. He is a truly remarkable human being. Now, he's known as an inventor, as a tribe/mastermind creator. He is a master in Tao, yoga. He knows about NLP. He's worked with the mastery of Tony Robbins. He's a world traveler. He's been to all continents except Antarctica, which I'm sure that's coming soon as well. And he's all throughout just a wonderful human being. And I'm really excited to have him on the show. Ewane, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful introduction, and thank you.
Now, I want to quickly know from you, because you do so many things, and I really appreciate that. For our listeners, what is it that you can do for someone that is tuning into the show today?
Man, it's just absolutely transform and change their lifestyle. I liken it to being like a lifestyle specialist of sorts, not from just one standpoint. I like to look at all four quadrants, both, you have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and being able to create a unique lifestyle based off of that, and really just focusing on at the core on their energy and expanding from there. So it's like if you have the energy to start with to be able to magnetize, then you can fully unleash all the potential that we truly have. And it's past our wildest imaginations. I promise you that.
Wow, I love that. Now I'm getting excited. So, you talk about energy, you talk about your imagination. Tell us a little bit about you. Was there a time in your life where you were not able to live beyond your imagination, where you were stuck in the kind of energetic field that you were in at the time?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have? I could tell you I could tell you about that right now. Like, luckily I have friends like Mario who make your days better, because I mean community and tribe and things of that nature allow you to be able to sustain these things. I think everyone has felt imagination, everyone has felt their dreams and their thought, but then you get into thoughting basically, and you're just like thinking how is it going to happen. It's like the how is never known. That's not part of this reality and this life that we live. So what I've experienced, especially in America, growing up, I had a lot of victim consciousness for a lot of obvious reasons. And so it was just like one thing to another thing seemed to be like, oh, they trying to hold us down, they trying to this and that. And so I remember there was a moment in middle school, actually, eighth grade in middle school, and I was very ambitious at the time, like all through elementary, middle school, was definitely always like standing out in, like I said, all the obvious ways, and then a lot of ways that had to do with just being like a geek of a lot of things. And eighth grade, I was running for president of the class/school, and there became this whole social issue. I remember it was like they called me out of class right before the speeches were about to happen, and there were like some teachers, that one of them specifically who I knew didn't really like me that much for whatever reason, and a couple others, and they basically had me in the hallway, and they're like, yeah, you, even though you have straight A's and you have good grades, we don't think you should like represent the school because you like got in trouble the other day from rough housing while playing sports at recess or something like that. They came up with something, and yeah, man, it just sent this whole wave, not just like in through the school. People started getting upset. People got fired. There was all kinds of stuff. And certain people were just like, this is wrong. And other people were, it became this whole thing. And after that, there was a loss of, identity for a while. I would say there was, it's those, losing your way for a little while. So when I got to high school, it was just like a period of time from then until maybe until the Tony Robbins conference. I don't know. There's probably, moments, like I said, in between, but definitely where it was just like, I didn't feel as though I was a master of my own life. I felt as though I was just doing things based off of what other people thought I should do. And like I said, there's plenty of grace mixed in there, but that's the overall premise, is that there's definitely been plenty of times in which I looked at my life and I was like, okay, I'm being lesser than what I know that I can be, and also just not just observing the process and being aware of the process for what it is. I'm trying to, project my own ego onto this situation as though, again, like I'm in this victim mode, which, as you said, you used my word, one of my words, freedom, when we're actually inherently free. Like we're not actually victims to anything.
Mm. So you talk about a lot of concepts that I find very intriguing. And I want to, so when you said for obvious reasons, do you refer to the fact that you have an African heritage, that you have a different skin color than many of the people that you were grown up with in the US? And because you're saying you were talking about victim consciousness. Now, can you explain what does that mean, victim mindset, victim consciousness?
Well, the victim consciousness is very, very basic. You have this circle, which is you and your life, right? Anything outside of that that we're ever projecting some kind of blame onto is victim consciousness. That's simple. I mean,
Mm,
it can be complicated because people get into all this like, no, it's really your little bubble. Doesn't matter if it's a parent, it doesn't matter if it's someone that look, if you blame anyone outside of yourself, it's victim consciousness.
right. And I agree with that. And I'm curious. So what was it like for you growing up when you were experiencing this victim consciousness and you were blaming people for the way that you were feeling?
I would say I generally, I got a lot of grace because, that's what I said about tribe and community. I was blessed to have a lot of tribe and community. I know we've spoken about the motherland, and a lot of these places have a lot of tribal infrastructures kind of built into them. So I definitely had a lot of people around me that kept me um, in love and while I was going through the process and still going through the process. So yeah, I would say that while I was going through it, there's just so many outside influences, I would say, which is a blessing in its own way. Because if you look at it as a training or a test, that's why I said the mastery is the key word. Because as I started looking at it that way, I was like, okay, like I can see as to how I would have, incarnated in this particular situation, right? Like it's like this is an interesting little. This is gonna be an interesting adventure with this particular upbringing and this particular society that I was surrounded with. And so that's the part that, it makes it easy in a certain sense to get into victim consciousness based off of there being people who actually, based off of that current paradigm, will project certain things onto you, right? And then you're just like, if you accept them, like I said about self responsibility, then that's when you turn into a victim because you're just like, wow, okay, that person just, if someone can hurt you and affect you in that way, then they can control you. So I was in positions where
Mm,
people were controlling the way that I was experiencing life.
you just said something very, very powerful. You said when someone can hurt you and affect you, how you feel, they can control you. Now, I think this
Mhm.
is very, very important for all people to realize because so often many people fall into the habit of saying, "You made me feel this way," or "Because
Mhm.
of you, I feel this way." And what you're saying is, if you're applying that mindset, you're actually being controlled by other people, if I understand you correctly.
100%, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
100%. That's it. That's it.
interesting. Yeah. And, I agree with you. And for the longest time, that brought me to this idea of responsibility. It's like, because I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, because I had certain dreams and aspirations that I wanted to pursue, but I didn't for the longest time. It took me 7 years from going from the inception of the idea of becoming a speaker and a coach to actually beginning practicing. It took me 7 years. In my mind, I kept saying, yes, one day, one day, one day. But I kept telling myself I can't because I'm not experienced, because people will criticize me, because I don't get enough support from my family. They don't support this idea. They keep asking, how are you going to make money with this? So they make me feel insecure about myself. And I was trapped in that for the longest time. So You were saying something similar in the beginning, how you were also following the voice of other people, what you should do. What was that like for you?
The thing about victim consciousness is, a lot of the times I speak in things where I say the same things over and over again because not only is it a benefit to me, but I know it's a benefit to others because a lot of the times things just get down to the basics. Like, what is the first principles? What is the rudimentary piece of this information? It gets back to freedom. Again, shout out to you. It's like you're not feeling free. That is the essence of it. You're not feeling free, like you're choosing your life. You're feeling as though people are just, oh well, they, and it's like you start theying all over the place, and then before you actually get deeper into it, you realize it's like, okay, so what actually is the difference between me and they, and you realize there's no actual separation, but that obviously takes deeper spiritual practice and a lot of other type of things to really understand the physics of this existence that we live in. It's not actually separated. It's just the perception of it, and
Right.
then it turns into this whole they thing, and you start dang all over the place, and you never end up getting anywhere with that. And one thing I will point out also in regards to your process is that because by every means that we can be able to measure, time is a construct. So the
Mm,
the real suffering comes from the attachment to the dream that you had. Like, you're like, because I mean 7 years is an idea, right?
right.
You went out and told other people, and then they then can affect you and whatever, and so then that starts controlling your thoughts. So that's why you're like, oh, 7 years was so long. I mean, you probably had plenty of great times in those 7 years that had nothing to do with the dream. Like, you
True.
you started it exactly when you were supposed to, based off
True.
of the infinite things that happen in this universe. It's just like maybe you didn't have the breath yet that you needed to be able. It's like, who knows? Like, there's so many automated things happening. That's why I said the perspective on lifestyle is what I've gained and want to be able to give to people as a life's mission. It's like so often I was just in this space of just, oh, I could do this and I could do this, and oh, this isn't going right and this isn't going right. And when I really sat back and thought about it, I was like, okay, so what am I actually focusing on? If I start focusing from the core, from the center of me and expanding out, I realize a lot of these people that I'm giving time, energy, and control of my life to, I might have just met them last week. I might have just, like, I mean, it's like I just met you. Like, it's like you just came out of nowhere, and I'm just like, see, this person just ruined my day. I was just talking to a friend about this today. Like, my sister has a coworker, and they're like, calling her 5 times a day. But I was like, you just met this girl. I was like, to allow her to be able, when you wake up in the morning, to now mess up your day when you have like me and other people around you this particular day, that love you and that are surrounding you. It's like we give all these things way, way far outside of our circle of influence, our circle of basically circle of influence is like our ability, our circle of the things that we actually can affect, not the things
Mm.
that are happening in, you know, Botswana or any of these other places that, across the. I don't know why I always use Botswana, but it's like I've been saying it for years. It's like, it's not like, whatever's happening in Botswana. Like people say the price of tea in China, right? Like, it's like, what does it actually matter? And like, with compassion, I understand that people live there and things are happening. The point is that if we cannot help it, then we necessarily create negative toxicity in our brain. Our brain starts looking for that victim thing where it's just like, oh, well, the world. What are you gonna do? I can't do anything. People are killers and crazy, and the world is, you start calling women psycho, and there's no actual scientific evidence that shows. I think 99.9% of like psychosis has been documented mostly in men. Like, so it's just like, but guys, man, oh,
Interesting.
that girl's crazy. Like, is she crazy? Is she really great? Like, we just things out of victim, it's like,
True.
it's like, no, she's not crazy. Like, it's like, but you can not accept responsibility for the life that you're living, right? Like, as though you didn't,
Mm.
approach her, or anyway, I don't want to get too deep on it, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, outside of ourselves, there's no power.
Mm. Ooh, outside of ourselves, there's no power. Like let's just marinate that what you just said. That was so profound. It's just outside of ourselves, there's no power. And based on what you were just telling, you're like, Botswana, but it's like on a daily basis. Like, my colleague, this client that I'm working with, my mother, our president. How many people lose power in the conversations they're having either with themselves or with others about things that they have 0.0 influence over? It's insane, right? It's crazy. And then you wonder why, when you sit down back at your desk and you're like, okay, it's game time, let me focus on my vision. And then after 30 minutes, you're so tired and exhausted, and then you reach for that Red Bull, you reach for that double chocka mocha flocka caffeine atomic bomb or whatever, or you distract yourself with porn. Like there's so many things, but it's like, if we really roll back, where it starts is, it's the mental conversations that are taking place that are thinking about, screw this president, screw Biden, screw Trump, screw whatever. It's like thinking that that's going to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and it's so interesting when we look at history too, because news at this level and all these kinds of things it's all very new. So it's like, that's why I also say I have a lot of compassion for myself when I'm like, okay, all right, this is an adventure, this is a new thing we're dealing with. It's like every generations have their things, but it's definitely like even the printing press in totality of human history is new. So it's like this ability of mass media to just be knowing what's happening across the world is just like our brain is like trying to process, like, what the heck, like this is wild. Like, people are getting killed, and so you start creating. I mean, we are. That's why Einstein talks about our imaginations, and so many people have. But our imaginations are so incredible. They're like the no matter what people believe in, it's godlike in its essence, because it is the ability to be able to see something that you're not currently experiencing. So it's like, oh, like something's happening in Syria. Like, I can see the people dying, like real quick, and the brain starts simulating it, and you start being like, man, that's so sad. And then now, like you said, your energy is thrown off. Your power has now been given outside, and with something that you actually have no power over. Now, if you knew somebody that was Syrian, like, giving always begets more, getting more, begets more to the person. So if you know somebody, then the ability to then go send a ship out to them, to send a message, a video, or something, I'm feeling for you, send, to you and your family. That's something that's within my paradigm. But most humans do not know somebody in every single pocket of everything that's happening that's a tragedy. But if you turn on that news, and I'm nothing against it, it's all just about, like I said, dominion over our attention. It's always going to be something. Like, so I was telling my sister, again, family, this the other day, as I've been focusing again to embody this as expanding from the core. It's like I would have to deal with breaking through people anyway. So why not have it be the people that are closest to me, as opposed to what I used to do, victim. It'd be like all kind of random people I meet. I'm trying to like preach on the streets about stuff that I'm understanding, and they're just like looking at me like, okay, cool. And then once you go deeper, you realize it's always going to be the same thing. Like, people are going to have blocks and barriers and things of that nature. So, I was telling her, I was just like, we can't give, our power to things that are outside of ourselves. That's the very simple way to do it. I mean, it's a simple way to look at it. Anything that's happening is not something that, if it's not something that we can affect, then we're necessarily, energetically, whatever way that you want to look at it, are absolutely giving our days, like, life force, which is limited, just like time and things of nature is limited, to that thing. People will wake up in the morning, especially our generation, wake up in the morning. A lot of people just grab their phone. I've seen her do it, respect to her if she ever watches this, and I've seen other people do it, where it's like they wake up, all right, you stretch out a little bit. Most people do, and then you just reach over and see what time is it. As soon as you grab your phone, because you probably didn't even have the note, your do not disturb on, you start seeing messages. And then once you start seeing those messages, those lead to you going and checking Instagram or whatever it is. And so now the news just starts flooding in of the day. And this is what I had told her, that I was like, what's interesting about that? It will never not be that way. Like, every single time you click on it, there will be news. Like, so if you don't actually sit there and realize that your rest of your life, every single morning you would wake up and immediately give power to something else outside of yourself before taking at least a little bit of time for your body, your life to know, okay, you matter most, then you'll be running on that for the rest of your life. So it's quite a powerful transformation when people take the dominion back on their attention and focus it back in on the little bitty things they can control. Like I became a gardener recently, like 6 months ago. I got my mom a garden because I wanted to start learning a little bit more about self-sustainable agriculture and certain things like that. And I realized I was like, man, I guess I haven't been blessed with children yet. I was like, I guess you can't give it twice as much food to have it grow twice as fast. Like that's like a law of the universe. Like there's no way. It's like I want to like have this thing grow real quick because we're growing like food and stuff. It's like, can we like feed it twice as fast, give it twice as much water? It's like, nah, works. Like it's not the way. No matter what, how ambitious your dream is, it is going to be a step by a step by a step by a step. It's going to operate off of the laws that that particular type of dream operates off of, no matter what it is. You know, that's why it's a law, like a law of gravity. You can be like, all right, no, it doesn't exist. All right, go jump off a building then and be like, I don't believe in it. You know.
So, so you said you've dropped a couple diamonds there, and I want to pick them up. First of all, you talked about energy and how I relate to this and I say externalizing your power, just like you say, you're giving away your power to something outside of yourself. And what that does, it drains your energy. And if you think, people like you and I, entrepreneurs, the people listening to this podcast, they're all high performers. We're all high performers. We love creating high outputs, our passions, the things that we want to create in the world, the gifts. And what is it that we need for that? We need to be able to consistently perform at the highest level. And what is it that helps us do that? It's like you say, it's taking an inventory of where your focus is going. The news, the in-laws, the 20 years ago that one experience in college, 5 years ago when I opened that business and I lost $50,000, whatever. There's so many things that are outside of ourselves that are draining our batteries. And then at the end of the day, we're like, I can't focus. I'm always tired. I'm exhausted. And it's so simple, actually, if you bring it back to yourself, when you stop focusing on these things and you make peace with, that's the way things are. And, I had a session earlier today with a client and introduced the concept of acceptance to her. And it was interesting because most people that don't know it, they think acceptance means you're just sort of throwing in the towel. You just say, oh, okay, whatever, fuck it, okay, there's a war in Ukraine and Syria, oh, whatever, I'll just accept that. That's not what it is. Acceptance means you're no longer fighting against the way that things are. Yes, there's a war, but you're like, there's a war, and I accept that there's a war. It doesn't mean that you're in support of the war or you're against the war. It just means that you're recognizing it the way it is. And you stop trying in your mind to make it wrong, to make it different, because you can't. That takes up all of your energy. So I love what you're saying. And I want to bring in, for all of our audiences, a revolutionary device that will radically alter the quality of your mornings. Give me 5 seconds and I'll be back. Okay. Are you ready? It's truly revolutionary. Most people don't have something like that. It's called an alarm clock. People, buy yourself a freaking alarm clock and get this one out of the room. Put it somewhere where you cannot reach it. Because you're so right, people wake up and they're like, oh, and we're looking for reasons to get triggered. We're looking for reasons to get pissed off. Ah, damn, look at that bitch. Yeah, she's got 75 likes. I only got 4.
Exactly.
What a whore, just because she's showing her skin. And then you get out of bed. Damn it. And you look for another reason. You turn on the news. Oil prices are going up. It's all terrible. And then you want to make space for your dreams and aspirations and hopes and visions. You forget about that. So I love what you talk about, energy. And I want to ask you, what is the role that mindset has played for you in your life? Because you share all of this wisdom, all these insights, but what's the role that mindset played for you?
So we had spoken about this before, just some of the similar experiences that we had, and so I was just loving you from the beginning because it was just like some of these things on mindset. It's hard. I mean, I think it's one of those things in life that's just so easy to understand. It's like almost everybody understands the thing about mindset, but it's like when they hear it, it goes in one ear and they're just like, okay, like I don't really know what to do about it, right? Like what to actually do about it. And that's why even for mindset, I get back to the energy. It's like understand like the fundamentals, really get to what are you actually considering whenever you wake up in the morning to the point that you go to sleep. Like, what is your mind thinking about? And once you do that self analysis, I always say self with a capital S, right? When you really do that self analysis on life and put that paradigm in on just you with that responsibility, you realize you're like, okay, like I'm thinking about a whole lot of things that aren't beneficial to me. I'm having thoughts about people and situations that are not beneficial to me. So then you're able to then just sit and put it on paper for some people. Some people that just have the ability to just sit in consideration or contemplation and be able to dissect and remove what serves and what doesn't serve, or like be able to section it out in a certain kind of way. So overall, yeah, mindset is just like with anything is about mastery and being able to get behind the mind, understanding that we are consciousness before we are the mind, right? So the mind is something we're paying attention to. You can just be able to sit behind it and just observe. You're like, huh, that's an interesting thought, and not attached to it, because that's what you're saying about acceptance. That's why acceptance is the energy of it is fascinating. Once I started really understanding it at that level that you're speaking about, like the frequency of acceptance is like the divine feminine, or like it's like Mother Earth. It's like, okay, like you guys want to keep doing this to me, like I'm gonna accept whatever you're doing, but like an unconditional love of a mother. It's like, okay, but if you get attached to it, that's the other side of it, which we all know the tiger mother or getting attached or whatever. I think it's called tiger mother. Anyway, the point is that if you get too attached after having that love, then it's like now you have a situation where you forget that the only constant in this universe is change. Like, so if you don't embrace the fact that everything is always changing and can't just accept it as such, like you said, war, getting older, people, whatever. It's just like people are like be fighting it and they're like, I don't want to change. It's like, I like how things were, the good old days. I'm on a war, actually, speaking of war, on the good old days concept. I'm like, I think people understand if you look at history, we take the bits of history that are the best information, and that's what transmutes into the next generation. Not that it wasn't 99% illiteracy at certain times and people wasn't savagely killing people in the streets. People were like, oh, the good old days, man, back when people had
Yeah.
families, back when families were, like, what are you understand? Like the universe always is moving forward. No matter what you
Right.
believe in, you know that at a certain point when we were younger, you had the ability to, I mean, you didn't have the ability to speak to someone across the globe and meet a genuine person like yourself, and now we do. So like everything is always adding up. It's just people, like I said, when we again power outside of ourselves, we start like glorifying, like you said, something that happened 5 years ago. Oh man, that was the, I see you have a lot of fun with the show, which I'm perfectly okay with. It's like, oh, that was the best piece of butt I had, back in college. I've heard everything from dudes. I'm just looking at him like, dude, that was like 10 years. I was the man back then, man. I swear, if I start telling you about my college days, I'm like, bro, like, like, why do you just like put it and compartmentalize it in the past about like these good old days of, and like you can't in this current moment just consolidate your energy. And anyway, like I said, I'm compassionate to it. That's why I'm here to serve for people to be able to do that. I just use comedy as therapy. Like I'm very compassionate to it all. I just also know that just like you can tell from many comedians, there's a Trojan horse there. Like they understand what the situation is. They just make it funny so that people can understand it. Like
Yeah.
we all just need to laugh at ourselves because a lot of the stuff that we say, a lot of the things that we get upset about, especially in intimate relationships, it's just like Okay, I think I was triggered there. I didn't know that that's why I responded that way to her or to him, and we'll fight about it for a while. And I'm just like, what am I actually? Am I trying to make this work, or am I trying to make it not work? Because what I'm gonna do is end up in a situation where I end up in a depressed, like alone spot, which obviously is not what people are actually looking for. So that being having that clarity, which goes back to the mind thing, is a process. It's a practice, whatever practice that people choose. People have so many. That's why I said it's very personalized what I do in the platforms and technologies we've been building around people upgrading their lifestyle. Like some people it's going and running, some people it's walking, some people it's drawing, or some people it's writing, some people it's meditating, some people it's doing yoga, some people it's talking to a friend, some people, like, so many people have different ways in which they particularly, you ask them the question, what like clears your mind and makes you feel at peace? You said the P word earlier. They'll be like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's that. And this when we started learning is like, no, everyone's forms of peace are different, but everyone
Mm,
understands peace. People understand the frequency of it, right? Like,
right.
and so being able to maintain it is where we have to start embracing certain laws and principles on how sustainability works, which we obviously see, like I said, in agriculture and so many of these other concepts that people deal with. Like they say, truth is truth regardless, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're in the oil industry or if you're in the self-help industry or you're in education. Like truth is truth. Like so most things around life and lifestyle are going to have these universal truths. And so it's about people coming into that understanding of those.
Before we continue the conversation with my inspiring guest, I have a very special announcement to make. If you're a business owner, I have a feeling you started this journey because you want more than just success. You want to live a truly abundant life. That means having a profitable business to fund the lifestyle you love and create a massive positive impact. It also means having thriving relationships with people who inspire and challenge you, being mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy so you can have the energy to go after what you really want while truly enjoying the process. And being able to go on adventures that really make life worth living rather than just sitting behind your computer all day. So, if you would like to be able to have this kind of abundance in your life, then I've just got the right thing for you. The Abundance Accelerator Academy is my new membership community where we host 3 monthly coaching calls that are focused on helping you improve your mindset, grow your business, and create the kind of freedom you want. There are also fun monthly community growth challenges that help you build new success habits, which you will need to access greater levels of abundance. All of this and more for just $69 per month. If this sounds exciting to you, visit www.abundanceupgrade4.me to learn more. And now, back to the show with my inspiring guest. Okay, what you just said is amazing, and I want to roll it back a little bit because you were talking about humor, and it shows that you are very mature in the way that you have spiritually advanced. Because they say this concept of the cosmic joke, realizing that you are actually the one creating all of the suffering that you are experiencing in life. And I remember this recently. I was feeling a little frustrated and was going on about something, and then I was in my mind, it was going like, yeah, but cha, 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 cha. And then at some point I realized what I was doing, and I just started laughing myself silly. I was like, oh, this is hilarious. It's just like two people in my head go, "Da, da, 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 what? No, but you haven't done this, you haven't done enough here." And I'm just like, oh, this is just funny. And as you say, being able to entertain a different perspective of yourself and realizing what you said here about in a relationship, am I actually trying to make it not work by being right, by focusing on having the upper hand, by focusing on this is the way it's always been, the good old days. Or are you actually opening yourself up to the way things are unfolding and maybe saying, hey, you know what, this is not what I expected or anticipated, yet let me go with the only constant there is in the universe, which is change. So I really, really love that. And I want to ask you, so what do you do when you're in a situation where you're noticing you're getting frustrated, you're feeling maybe a little stuck, and then you're like, things are not moving forward? How do you get yourself through that? How do you navigate through that situation to get back onto the path that you want to be on?
So I would say that there's really, and this is gonna blow people's minds. There's infinite ways that that can be handled, right? Like it's more really just embracing the um the creative potential that we have, because I've done it in many ways. Sometimes it's like a song that like pops in my head. It's like, oh, that song will be perfect for this moment. Sometimes it's like, let me run to the gym, let me go on a walk, let me call a certain friend, let me, read a certain book, let me breathe, right? Let me take a few deep breaths, let me use some of these breath practices that I have there. I know so many of them now, so it's like, oh, let me breathe into my heart for a second, kind of like tap myself, kind of like, okay, let me remember that, everything's okay. Or let me just take a deep breath and, or let me take a deep breath and, like just like there's so many of them. Let me just meditate for a second, close my eyes, feel my feet in the ground. It's like, okay, everything's okay. Everything's okay. So it's always like, it depends on the moment, but I definitely feel like the foundations of it do get down to like the breath and just being like, okay, like, let me see for a second. I wasn't breathing. My breathing had gotten short. I started breathing in the chest and started like hyperventilating. You could see babies like they'll go through, they understand the change thing and they just go through, okay, I cry and express. And 2 seconds later, I'm okay because they're breathing or they're fresh out of the diaphragm. So they're just breathing through they can just up and down. Once we start getting more into stress breathing, it's a harder, because there's not as much oxygen going to the lungs and to subsequently all of our cells, that the body will turn into fight or flight, and we then we get into a very aggressive kind of behavior, and generally that starts with ourselves. Like we start getting aggressive with ourselves usually before anything, right? Like it's like you feel like like you've been challenged, like oh, wait a second, hey dude, you got a problem, bro? But the first thing was that you felt challenged, like you let something happen to yourself first,
Yeah.
self responsibility, and then your reaction to it was like that. One of the things you said, a responsibility. A good friend of mine he considers himself like a language arts professional. So he's like, man, language arts, break it down, bro. It's like your ability to respond. Like, look at
Yes.
it's like your responsibility is your ability. Like how can you increase your ability to respond to situations? I'm like, okay, I can see that. So that's when I started relooking at responsibility and embracing it, because I was running from it. I'm not gonna lie, with freaking commitment, with women, with like business, it was cool. Like I've always been in business, so I was studying that, so focused on that. But what I started realizing is, just like a lot of these things, when we get into the law of compounding or the law of exponentials, same as to why you would want $1 today and or 1 cent today and 2 cents tomorrow and continue doubling it for 30 days, as opposed to somebody giving you $1 million. It's like our brain thinks linearly, so we don't consider that it's going to be more. But a lot of the things in the universe work in that compounding effect, as again Einstein's called it, I think, an eighth wonder of the world. And another thing that has been studied that has that exponential relationship is relationships. So starting with ourselves, but then if we talk about other relationships we had, that's when I was like, I think these people are going to be around for a while. I was like, I need to figure out inside of me why I'm not able to open up. Like I'm open with myself, but like once I start speaking to someone else, it's like I don't want to be vulnerable. Like that seems a little bit scary. It's like I don't I don't start telling other people the stuff that I'm thinking deep within, about how I love them and how, and how I just don't want them to leave. And I just, I want to protect them and make sure, it's just like, no, that seems a little much. So, it's like, that's what I'm saying. Business has an ability to kind of keep you disconnected in that way, in certain ways, and not realize that what causes us the majority of stress, because of how, again, our energetic bubble works. Like, it's like what's directly outside of that is going to be the people you spend the most time with, have the most connection to. And it's like, if that's not the main thing that we focus on, we're not expanding really from the core. We're thinking that these other things, our business, our so on and so forth, matters more, when most people that you ask on their deathbed, the first thing that they start talking about is the relationships that they've had, right? It's just like, man, I used to, it's like it's always the same thing. Again, I'm in the medical field, so I know sometimes a lot of the stuff I say is a little bit morbid. I think that's part of where the comedy comes from. Because I've seen so many people in those situations and talk to the nurses and things of that nature. And they're like, yeah, man, it's just always like their relationships, like the people who are there with them at the deathbed, and like that's pretty much. I mean, yeah, people will also think about some of their accomplishments if they were like again something that they did to give to humanity. But it's not like people are like, man, that porn video I watched that one day, bro. I tell you what, man, that was it. All right, see y'all later. You know, it's just like what? But I've been there. I've been there, man.
Yeah.
That's what I said. You're being open with it. Yeah, like I really respect that about you because yeah, that's a big one for dudes. I'm tackling that one with this online community with a good friend of mine right now, where it's just like all distractions, but that's one of them that it's a strong magnetic pull because
That's
that's
huge.
the life force that creates the universe. Everything is yin and yang. There's nothing in this universe that wasn't created by that force together, like that creation power. So when we're getting magnetized to that, it's like I mean your whole body and like brain is like, oh snap, like freaking you plan on sitting down there for like 5 minutes, and then I'll be like 5 hours later, like the little SpongeBob thing. You're like, yeah, what the heck happened? Like, you like look up, like, what's going on?
Mhm.
So I battled that one for a long time, man. I was just like, I don't know why this keeps like, I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, your creativity opens up. I mean, I'm talking about my typing skills will just be on point. Like, like I was like, I've never typed so good in my life, but that's our creative force. Like, it was like I was tapped in. You're freaking doing all. And so, yeah, man, it's wild. I love that you, like I said, I really, really respect and love that you said. A lot of people don't want to mention that one because it's the things that happen in quiet, are the things that people don't really like to mention. The stuff that's all business and all this other type of stuff. Man, but be real, bro. When I saw these numbers on these porn sites, man, somebody's watching this shit. And it's not, so when you're like, oh, you're out here working, I'm grinding, bro. You're on Instagram, I'm grinding, bro. It's just like, okay, bro, don't try to act like these numbers. This video was uploaded 5 freaking hours ago, bro. It got 2 million views, man. Somebody's watching this
Yeah,
shit.
you're very, very, very spot on. And you mentioned about what people regret on their deathbeds, and then you said relationships. And it's so true, that I have extensively worked on my intimate relationships and how I show up in those relationships, and also taking responsibility, for what I assume the other person is responsible in ticking off in me, fulfilling my needs. The needs. People have a need to feel loved, and I'm like, I don't want to tap into that. I want to connect with my highest spirit where there's no need to be loved, because that is pure love. So I continuously on an ongoing basis, fill my cup, breathe, affirm, give myself a hug, rest a little bit, take care of my body. And what I find is that a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, high performers, the reason they're not able to create the vision they really want is because of how they're showing up in their relationships. They're not open. And, I've said this in my TEDx talk. One of the biggest drivers of self-doubt is loneliness. And people, when they hear this, say, oh, I'm not lonely. I got friends. I got a wife. I got a husband. He's like, yeah, but do you talk to your wife about the fact that you feel deeply ashamed about the fact that you still watch porn in secret? Do you do that? No, you don't. So the part of you that does that is terribly lonely, because it has no option to be seen. It cannot be expressed. And I'll say this openly. I was able to end my porn habit a while ago after I opened up to it with my partner. I was deeply ashamed about it, and I wanted to stop for so long, yet I could not get myself to stop. So I opened up in a very vulnerable way because I wanted to stop, because I did not want this to have power over me. And I cried. My body was shivering with the intensity of the fear. And I promise you, after I did that, the desire to watch was gone. It just vanished, because I gave that part freedom. I gave it liberation. and it disappeared, and it no longer is an issue. It's gone. And I've done many of those things in relationships where I've revealed like deep, intimate secrets that I thought were like, if that person finds out, they're going to hate me. Whereas when they did find out, after I told them, they're like, wait, that's it? That's the big deal? Really? And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? That's the big deal, you know? It's so terrible. It's like, okay, that's not really a big deal. And I was liberated. And it was amazing to have gone through this experience. So I'm really happy that you bring awareness and light to what people are keeping in their relationships.
Absolute light, man. Absolute light to you in that situation. Trust me, it's there's a shift happening in the universe right now. Those of us who, you know, whatever soul connections and ties that exist within this experience, in the essence that we're all connected in that way. I somehow continue to connect with people as I've broken through that paradigm, that are also speaking on how they broke through that paradigm, how big of a deal it was. Like, it's like, it has to be said out loud, because it's like, man, like I felt like something shifted, like in my body, like in my life. It was just like, huh. Like, it was just like space. Like, it was just like space had opened up. It's like, huh. Interesting. Like, it's like, because even if I wasn't, I don't even, I don't even want to get into the mindset, because it's like there was a pull that I no longer gave power once I was able to express it in front of family. I kind of told them, I was like, listen, man, we had like this person come over that was trying to talk to us about mindset and our relationship with God and so on and so forth. And I remember I was like, you know what? I was like, I really feel like I want to like let go of things that are like lustful and so on and so forth. I remember just kind of being like, I can't believe I just said that. I was like, but you asked me, So I was like, I had to be honest. And I was like, my sister's sitting next to me, my dad, mom's over here. Like, I was like, I don't know how they're gonna feel about this. And it was like, it took like a week or two. And I remember it was just like, after a few weeks, like something just felt like it had left me. And I think something has to do also there with what you were talking about with your significant other at the time, maybe the same one you still have now, is that ability to be able to express that in that kind of intimate setting allows the light. Some people. I want to drop some gems here as we're going along, like things that have to do with our genetics and at the deepest level, so we can talk science or we could talk spirituality. They're one and the same. When we look at our genetics, a lot of times people think that it's one way, like it's like, okay, your nature has to then be your nurture, when in reality it's constantly changing. And so epigenetics as an expressive thing is the basic principle that whenever you do allow something that's deep within you that has been suppressed to express, it literally sends light into your cell, into your DNA. And now it's just like, oh, interesting. Like, it's now like uncovered something. It's like, dang, okay, there's actually like not actually a need for it, right? Like, and it might have been a need for when it needed to be. Again, that acceptance of it goes with that journey as after the actual physical dependency breaks. Like, when that breaks, it's like, huh, okay, so like, what was I doing with my time all those years? I guess, like, what was the considerations? And you're just like, I accept it. That's what it was. Now, how can I double down on it by serving? How can I speak about it so I learn it twice? And so what you just said was so powerful to me. I mean, that was, it was so powerful, because that's the way that we'd want to be able to show up, is this understanding that, again, that vulnerability is power. Again, those things that we can affect, those things where we're like, how can I consider myself to be someone, okay, I'm brave because I'm like out here talking about a business idea, but I can't tell the people that are closest to me like the things that are actually going on with me and quiet. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like all that stuff looks nice. I can go out and get a nice car, I can get a whatever, but I literally can't tell the person I sleep with every day something that I spend my entire life, like a lot of times in my life, doing. That's what shows what I'm talking about. This what you call the extension, or the power happening outside of ourselves, and giving our energy outside of ourselves. So I just thank you, man. That's one of, like I said, the deeper things that I really think is a shift happening in our collective consciousness right now. And it's not necessarily a disconnection from uh, life force or sexual energy. It's more of what are we choosing to do with that energy that created every last one of us? Because, I mean, the past generation had their own relationship with it. Again, self responsibility, not blaming them. You just understand and be aware that this thing is trying to express itself, because for them, they didn't even have the same, knowledge and outlets that we had. So I didn't really learn it from them. I remember I tried to navigate that entire space by myself. Like we were the ones with internet and phone and this ability to just kind of see all these things happening wherever they're happening, and videos and production and stuff being done. You're just like, where is this happening? But it's happening right here in my room right now. That's where it's going down. And I'm not gonna, no one's gonna know about this.
No.
And if I get caught, it's pretty embarrassing. Got caught with some stuff a couple times, it's just like, yeah, this is pretty embarrassing. I was like, I don't know what to say. Oh, well, Dad didn't tell me about what I was supposed to do with this type of, like I started blaming people and getting to this whole like defensive thing. And I just, like I said, I just started realizing that, man, this is not just me. Like, this is a lot of people. Once I started opening up about it, they're just like, and it'll be the most interesting people. Like I said, those numbers don't come from anywhere. You'll be like talking to a friend that you're just like, oh, this guy isn't like, doesn't have, he's not, I mean, you're a handsome guy. Like, it's like, this guy is like out here, he's probably doing that type of stuff. This guy over here, with all due respect, it's like, he just seems like a nice guy. He's not doing it. They'll tell you they're dealing with the exact same thing. They just happen to be a, geek software developer, right? Like, or something like that, or whatever their life choice is. But they're like at home, in private, in the bathroom, on the road, with my phone, on the whatever, like, trust me, brother, I'm some of those views, man. So I thank you for being one of the, when I started expressing it, they're like, I thank you for, talking about it, because I've not been able to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
Guys don't talk about that in the locker room, at the gym, or, on
Yeah.
phone calls or anything like that. It's a very, very private thing, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Very, very private for most people.
It is. It is. And it took me years of dedication and work and really for me, it's the promise of I'm aligning myself towards Christ consciousness, which is ultimate love. It's peace. And I ask myself, what's in the way? And what's in the way is the secrets that I keep from myself and from other people. And I said, I don't want to do that anymore. And so those are one of the layers that I then peeled off. And I can just I share this with everyone, and I say this is it's this work that we're doing. It's about coming back home. It's not for you to go anywhere. It's for you to return to who you have always been, and that is unstoppable, unlimited, incomprehensibly powerful. So it's you just have to go back there, and how you get back there is you remove all the things that are not part of it. And that's what we have talked about today. So I really appreciate this conversation with you, my friend. And as we wrap up the conversation, I have two more questions. One question is, you're a very interesting person and you've met so many people in your life. And if you could spend an extra hour of your time with anyone, dead or alive, doesn't matter, and have them over for, a lunch, who would it be and why?
Huh. Yeah, and you threw me came out of left field with that dead one, man, because my immediate thing is going to be like something like, you just mentioned Christ consciousness. I'd probably say whatever Christ existed, and somewhere between that and Buddha, or a Buddha or something like this. That's what I'm saying. History is such a convoluted thing. Point is, I'm just going to go with that.
Why?
Well, just because it depends on who you're talking to. I would, the reason I would say is because of the purity of it. Buddha, I would say because of the conscious transition, and I guess I would say the story of Jesus Christ was also one of conscious transition, like this ability to basically master life to the sense that you literally consciously transition into the or back home, like you said. You actually you consciously, okay, it's going to be this day. Cool. I've accepted it. I'm going into that kind of, ability. And then I'm going to, yeah, sayonara, everybody. Like as opposed to like this kind of, this fear of something that is inevitable, and also in essence, inherent. Like it's a need. It needs to happen. Is how this entire thing is built. So I always say that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that answer, and I'm with you on that one. And the before we close the conversation, you did mention that you have events happening, and I was wondering, is there anything that you'd like to invite our community to experience where they can get a taste of you?
Main thing is just going to be to come find me on all social medias. All social medias is going to be Ewane Masango. Follow my journey. It's all about mastery. Master E. I'm actually a down master, so Master E is my given name. So it kind of just worked out well. You know, everyone called me Master. I mean, everyone called me E anyway. So like mastery and then mastery as a principle has been the thing. So anyone who's down with that kind of thing will find me online. I have plenty of programs that are coming out around wellness, around breath, around business, and how to build a conscious and wellness into your business. And like I said, at the foundations of it, being able to curate a lifestyle that is not only just personalized, but also, performance based, where each and every day, you know that, hey man, I'm better than I was yesterday, and I'm not as good as I'm going to be tomorrow, based off of this very focused understanding of one's energy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Everyone, go check out Master E, my friend Ewane Masango, the absolute powerhouse who delivers so much wisdom in a practical way. So if you are a business owner, a high performer, go check him out. Highly recommend. Ewane, thank you so much for dedicating your time to me and our audience today. I'm going to give you the final word. Is there anything that you would like to share with someone who's listening in?
And I would say that continue to, be open, trust the process, just simply be aware and observe it, and you'll meet people like the great Mario here, who if we just start telling the story about how we met, it felt magical literally when I met him. I literally was like, when you start feeling goosebumps. And so I know this is the beginning of something great. So just stay open, and definitely, as Mario said, Christ consciousness, be of the highest of love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the Self-Doubt Solution. This is your host, Mari Lanzarote, the Freedom Architect. Be with love and peace, my friends. I'll see you on the next episode.